So today I would just like to go over earnings call for NVIDIA. If you guys would like to kick off with some of the highlights, whatever stand out for you on earnings call, just if you want to just go department by department, it's totally up to you. Just share your thoughts. What do you think? What are your expectations?
Yeah, I can kick us off. This is Dominic. So I think there's a lot of, obviously, it was a great earnings call from a results standpoint, right? They executed. This is now 16 out of 17 quarters that NVIDIA has had an earnings beat. We all saw that they did, 5.66 billion on a 5.4 expectation. They beat earnings as well at $3.66 earnings per share. And gaming and data center also exceeded, right? But what I think is really interesting is that there's so much more to come. And I don't know if everyone, how closely you follow NVIDIA, or if you saw the GTC conference keynote on YouTube. Highly recommend it. In my opinion, it was the best keynote that I've seen from a CEO, quite frankly, and the amount of technology releases. And there's a lot that's still in the pipeline, right? So when we look at the Grace DPU, that is no revenue reporting for the new data center chipset for Grace. That's not even expected till 2023 is what was said on the call, right? And we look at the CMP products for the Bitcoin mining and Ethereum mining. That's going to continue to go up and fluctuate and be very volatile, but that's just extra additional revenue that benefits them, right? And that trend's going to still go up as cryptocurrency continues to be popular. But really was interesting to hear Jensen speak specifically around the data center and data center growth. And I've been in data center sales for over 15 years. And I work for VMware, and we obviously are a partner, he said on the call, for the AI enterprise software platform. And he really gets zero trust security. He really gets the ability to replace the legacy NIC cards in data centers today with the new chipset and architecture that he's designed, and offloading 50% of the compute to the cloud, and every single packet and application having real-time security monitoring. In the threat cybersecurity landscape, that is humongous. And the fact with their edge computing and their EGX platform, in the presentation from GTC, they listed a lot of their partners. One of those partners is Cloudflare. So I would not be surprised to see some partnership around more edge computing solutions and security. Jensen mentioned they were doing a proof of concepts with all the internet companies for their new data center chips already. So there's going to be meaningful revenue growth and contribution next year with that whole chipset with Grace. And then they're going to alternate the releases of new chipsets between Bluefield, Grace. I'm leaving out the other one. Help me out there, Eric. I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Bluefield? No, you mentioned Bluefield already.
Yeah, Bluefield. It was Bluefield, Grace, and the AI. Is it the Drive? No, it's not Drive. I should know this off the top of my head.
You're talking about data center products?
Yeah, they have their GPU sales in general, right? So they're GPU cards in general, and they're going to alternate releases every 18 months. So if you looked at the GTC presentation that they presented a while back, we're on Bluefield 2, which is already helping power GeForce now, and they just mentioned they crossed 10 million users and gamers, and that's going to continue to grow as mobile gaming grows. But the amount of performance and security that Bluefield 3 and 4 will happen in the future, I think 2024 is when Bluefield 4 comes out. It's 100x performance than Bluefield 2, right? So being able to stay ahead of the curve with AI and performance and really understanding the future of compute, I think that's where Jensen sets himself apart from any other CEO in the industry today. He fully understands it. He fully understands how to get it across the curve. And then he's released all these different pieces to his compute platform that's driving so much adoption. So I don't want to hog the call, so I'll let Jose and Eric jump in here, but it was just a phenomenal call, and there was a lot of little nuances if you picked up on things that are going to come up for future revenue streams.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think Eric was actually a live blog in NVIDIA earnings call, so maybe he can share some of the highlights from the call as well, Eric.
Yeah, sure. I felt like, the numbers in general were very good. I think the bar was, set high going into earnings, just given how much NVIDIA had run up. But, it's hard to complain about either the gaming or the data center performance. And of course, they're very supply constrained right now. They have, like so many other, chip developers, they're shipping just about everything that, every chip they can get from a foundry. So I think, those numbers are fine. I think maybe some of the, part of the subdued reaction to the earnings report stems from the fact that the CMP sales have become such a big contributor. They recorded 155 million worth of them in the April quarter. They're guiding for 400 million in the July quarter. So, there are still some concerns about like how sustainable all that is, particularly with crypto prices coming under pressure the last couple of weeks. If, that continues, people are wondering, are you going to have like a drop off in demand there? But at the same time, there's a lot of unmet demand right now among gamers. I mean, you just look at the aftermarket prices for high-end gaming GPUs. It's a sign that, a lot of gamers who want to buy NVIDIA graphics cards right now aren't able to. And, as more supply becomes available, with them halving the Ethereum hash rate for newer gaming GPUs, and with just more foundry supply becoming available, a lot of that demand will be addressed. And in the data center, they just have such a dominant position when it comes to AI training right now, both because of the quality of the A100 flagship server GPU, as well as just the software stack they have on top of it and the developer ecosystem. While there is growing competition there, they are still by far, the dominant player. And, there's just constantly growing demand for these deep learning workloads, both among hyperscalers and increasingly, among traditional enterprises. So, it looks like, the rest of the year is shaping up pretty well. There is maybe some uncertainty about how long, some of the crypto demand will last, and also just what portion of their current gaming GPU sales are going to crypto miners. But given how much unmet demand there is right now among gamers and also among data center clients, they should, do well over the next few quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. I actually just read an article. I completely missed it. I don't know how, but I heard they mentioned that I think Square using A100 for Cash App along with Google Cloud as well. So that was pretty interesting. I had not known about this. I don't know how I completely missed it because I've been following Square for quite some time. But so many amazing partnerships with Cloudflare and autonomous driving is one of the areas that I'm particularly excited about as well. All the partnerships with NIO, XPEV, BMW, Mercedes, I think Volvo. So it's been amazing. Jose, do you have anything to add? What's going on? Anything interesting that you've seen stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say piggyback with the overall gaming revenue. I thought that was amazing. And one thing I was trying to see was how was this year's gaming revenue different from 2017 and 2018 when we had that pretty much where it was driven a nice amount by Bitcoin miners, right? And I forget who it was. If it was either the CEO or someone in the management team mentioned what was the biggest difference between 2017 and 18 compared to now. And one of the biggest difference was in 2017 and 2018 when we had this whole crypto boom and this overall everybody was just buying cards for crypto mining. It was almost at the end of the GTX cycle. I think they were just releasing the 1080 Ti, which was their last card. Where right now, where we're seeing this RTX, the 3000 series, it's pretty much beginning. I think the first card for the 3000 series came out in September, and they're still releasing. So in September, we were still seeing this huge impact of the crypto mining community. So I think it was Eric who mentioned how just that huge pent up demand for gamers. The gamers, even myself, I use it for content creation for YouTube. I love that GPU accelerator when exporting my videos. I still can't come up with a 3000 series GPU since release date because of the huge demand for it. So I think that was just a huge, it's a huge bullish thesis for me for the future of the graphics, even after, if or after this whole Bitcoin mining phase or crypto mining phase ends. The second thing is that I really enjoyed was the CMP. And right, so the CMP, even though it's adding a good portion of revenue, I think it was over $150 million. These chips are chips that did not meet expectations. I mean, this is a strategy done with many semiconductors. They test the chips. AMD does it. You can sometimes get lucky and buy like a 2500 Ryzen, and in reality, it has cores as a 27, 28, 2900. It's just because it didn't meet the spec. So NVIDIA now is selling with that CMP mode. They're selling chips that didn't even make it on their lower tier card level. So it's extra revenue for chips that were most likely not going to make it anywhere. So I do believe that was a great move for NVIDIA. And we can probably talk about it more on, but even though, like you mentioned, I think, Max, the overall automotive segment is not a huge segment. It's probably, I think, one of the smallest segments right now, but it's one I'm super excited just with the overall partnerships. We got a lot of information in the GTC presentation, but still, just kind of reviewing, they kind of share a lot of that information again in this earnings call. And just reviewing, like TuSimple, the self-driving truck company, is partnered with them as well. So seeing that partnership grow, I think it's going to do well for NVIDIA.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually, I have the earnings results in front of me right now, and some of the things that stand out to me is like revealed that Cruise is the latest robotaxi company selecting NVIDIA Drive, following announcements by Amazon, Zoox, Didi, Oxbotica, Pony.ai, AutoX. There are so many amazing partnerships going on. Then announced that NVIDIA Drive will be powering intelligent new energy vehicles from SAIC Auto, IM Motors, Faraday, starting 2022. There is a lot to look forward to, and this is just the beginning, honestly.
Yeah, I would also say that there were other things that he kind of hinted at the end of it, talking about where they're at with their genomic partnerships, right? We know in the GTC conference, they struck up a major partnership with Schrodinger. They also had a deep dive day on their GTC conference talking about all the other biopharma and drug discovery companies that they're partnered with the DGX pods and the A100s and all of their different data center solutions with the Clara discovery software. I think with the rise of genomics and the continued trend of that, we are going to see NVIDIA play a role in that from a hardware perspective, right? And some other things that we didn't hear about revenue-wise that are in the works that were in that presentation, where they also have Morpheus for their cybersecurity and being able to detect threats on the network and internally very quickly and in real time. And then with language articulation, they also have Jarvis and the ability to have the natural language processing. That is going to continue to play a role as other technologies evolve with natural language processing. I believe they stated that they had 95% accuracy going from English to Japanese and including slang and inflection. So you think about all these things that they're doing, they're giving themselves tons of optionality. So even if the ARM deal doesn't go through, they still have a large growth pattern ahead of them, and today's revenue growth demonstrated that at 84% year-over-year growth. So anytime they're giving guidance, I would take that with a grain of salt because they've beat guidance 16 out of the last 17 quarters, right? So they know the game to play to make sure that it's a good earnings beat. But then you look at all the different things that they have, and that autonomous driving piece will pick up as that becomes more widely adopted. In fact, they were just named the kind of the brainchild or CPU of the Neo Series 7 autonomous electric car that's going to come out that is supposed to do up to 600 miles in one charge. So they are definitely striking up those partnerships across the board to make sure that they are heavily involved in autonomous driving.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Oh, I see Wolf just joined us. Welcome on board, Wolf. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for all the listeners for joining us. We have a second event today at 8 o'clock, which will be dedicated to Snowflake, and we'll be having the same format. We have great speakers for this event. Look forward to this, and we'll probably will cover on NVIDIA company for the next maybe like 10-15 minutes, and then if any of the listeners have any questions to the speakers, please request to speak, and I will bring you on as a speaker. You can ask a question if you have anything. And Dominic, I would like to ask you really quick. Maybe you can provide us some color on NVIDIA AI Enterprise software suite for VMware vSphere, enabling scale out, multi-node performance, and compatibility for a range of applications and data science. Would you like to provide any color a little bit on this?
Sure. Yeah. So, as Max stated there before, I work for VMware in our cybersecurity division and for Carbon Black. And previously, I sold the full VMware stack. And so, one of the things with this partnership that where it's so important with the data center and the AI movement is we have 500,000 plus customers globally, right? When you look at the hypervisor market, VMware has 80% of that market. So it's the hypervisor of choice when you look at your servers and the data center as a whole. And so we've partnered together to create this NVIDIA AI enterprise solution that's really going to be able to be put on any mainstream OEM provider like Dell Technologies, HP, Lenovo, those servers, Cisco, and the Cisco UCS system. And so this is now a software license per CPU solution, or it could be subscription based, or it can be perpetual. So obviously NVIDIA and VMware both want as much subscription revenue as possible. For those of you who follow software as a service companies, that's that reoccurring revenue. That's that guarantee that we're going to see that. We're going to see that high gross margin. And then what else can we sell them on the truck? What can we else expand in the ecosystem? And so I see this as another lever for NVIDIA, just even increasing their stronghold in the data center. And with that, this is going to really give them access to those other customers. And you already see it with Dell Technologies and HP pushing out a lot of the servers with the GPU cards, and then offering the NVIDIA AI Enterprise solution available with that for customers. So I definitely think this is going to be a big tailwind for them and VMware.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I guess just to follow up on that real quick. I mean, I think that's maybe an overlooked part of the story right now with NVIDIA. I mean, you think long term, like Jensen Huang's been trying to talk a little more about it recently, about how they want to create these recurring revenue streams, whether it's through like the enterprise AI software stack, or offering like pre-trained like AI models that in the event that a company doesn't want to like build out its own model, they can leverage NVIDIA, and that these models will of course be optimized to work well with NVIDIA GPUs. Then you have the Omniverse platform, which recently launched, which they're like selling to enterprises, and it's like a real-time collaboration and simulation platform, for all kinds of like 3D applications. They also announced a partnership with Mercedes-Benz, where Mercedes will be offering a software that's sold on a subscription basis, and it'll be like jointly developed with NVIDIA. And I think it's it's the kind of thing they want to replicate with various other automakers. So I mean, that's an interesting part of the story. Like a try to tell people, NVIDIA in many ways is a software company as much as it is a chip developer, and that's really a margin lever long term, and it's also a reason why they can often charge the premiums that they do for their GPUs. And for the time being, it's software is a pretty small percentage of the revenue, but it's certainly something to look out for long term, like how they try to create these new software revenue streams, whether in automotive or in the data center or wherever else.
No, I think you're so spot on there, Eric. And one of the other overlooked pieces is with the pro visualization department of, their 4-year CAGR was only 6%, but that's before Omniverse. Omniverse already with BMW as just the proof of concept customer case study they demonstrated was they were able to save BMW 30% on building their manufacturing plant and operations through doing simulations with digital twins with Omniverse. And you look at that as an emerging technology and use case of AR and VR of digital twins and being able to replicate and test things first in a digital environment than physical. There's a lot of co-creation among different industries and customers. And I really like how Jensen's talking about vertical expansion. He mentioned on the call, we're growing sequentially and annually in all of our different verticals. So definitely servicing multiple customer bases, which gives great growth and optionality.
And another reoccurring subscription that kind of gets overlooked, I feel like everything gets overlooked for NVIDIA, is even though it's small, the GeForce Now, the cloud gaming subscription. I think they mentioned they had about 10 million subscribers right now. Some of them are free, or some of them are paying the $9.99 a month right now to kind of have that cloud gaming capabilities on their platform. So obviously it's a small segment into gaming, but just, again, continue to see that reoccurring revenue for NVIDIA.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I agree with you. We were talking about data center, and I see that first quarter revenue was a record of 2 billion, up 79% from a year earlier. And how much of this revenue, guys, include revenue from Mellanox, or did they provide a breakdown from like organic revenue?
They didn't break it out, and a lot of people, the analysts, were asking about the Mellanox growth, trying to lock down a number there. They did say that it was growing sequentially. Colette talked about that and giving the double-digit growth, but really didn't hear about what those actual numbers are, unless I misheard on the call.
Yeah, I missed I had to stop listening to the earnings call right when they switched to Q&A, Q&A portion. So I probably have to go back and re-listen everything. I don't know, Eric, did you catch anything from that Q&A portion? Anything that stood out for you?
There are, I guess, a few different things. Just I guess the general commentary about how broad-based the data center strength is. During the April quarter, hyperscaler demand was clearly a big growth driver, but I think both Jensen Huang and Colette Kress were eager to stress how enterprise demand is also very strong. And I think they're saying they're quote unquote vertical industries, which is their term for traditional Fortune 500 type enterprises. They're a little over half of their total data center revenue right now. I mean, Mellanox is a factor there, but it's certainly a large business, and they've been catering to it fairly well with their DGX servers. And now, they're trying to broaden, their software exposure through to that area with the enterprise AI stack. So, I mean, that area is still doing pretty well. I mean, HPC is also an important driver for them there, just with all the supercomputer engagements you have for NVIDIA GPUs, as well as for Mellanox's products. So I think, that was maybe the one big thing there is just how broad the data center strength is right now. And, as I said before, with both gaming and data center, there's a lot of unmet demand right now just because of all the chip shortages. And so it looks like, the second half setup for data center looks pretty good. And I guess one more thing I could quickly add there is NVIDIA saw about a $900 million sequential increase in their inventory purchase obligations. And they suggested long lead times for data center products contributed heavily to that. So, on one level, that's a sign just that lead times are stretching just because you have these chip shortages. And so you have to place these orders, months out in advance. But on another level, it's a sign of how much data center demand there is right now, and how the fact that they're comfortable placing these giant chip orders for data center products. And, it's pretty clear, second half of the year, we'll see pretty strong data center demand.
Yeah, absolutely. Did they provide any additional information on how long do they think this shortage will keep going on?
It's difficult to give an exact number. I do think shortages are gradually, the situation's gradually improving for leading edge process nodes, for 5 and 7 and 8 nanometer processes, which is, what NVIDIA heavily depends on right now. You look at commentary from not just NVIDIA, but AMD, Apple, Qualcomm, they're all suggesting there's, gradual improvement there. Qualcomm, suggested there'd be a major improvement in their supply situation by year's end. So that's getting better. At the same time, you do have shortages for various other products, particularly at the trailing edge nodes. So NVIDIA might be dependent on various other chips, from other suppliers. For example, with notebooks, you have like a shortage of LCD controller chips right now. So like an OEM like HP or Dell might not be able to ship a notebook, even though they're getting enough GPUs from NVIDIA and say enough CPUs from Intel and AMD. They're not able to get enough LCD controller chips or enough LCD panels. So those kinds of shortages a lot of them, it looks like, will linger into 2022. But it does look like the supply situation for leading edge processes will get better in the coming months.
Yeah, that's good to know. I heard you touch on the competition. Like maybe you guys can talk a little bit about the competition and how do you think NVIDIA's positioned when it comes to competing with the NVIDIA or Qualcomm or some other
Sure.
chip companies? What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I would say with one of the ones I'm interested to see kind of play out, and I don't know, we probably still have to wait a couple more months before this acquisition's finished, is with the Xilinx and AMD acquisition and 5G. Jensen was not shy about wanting to make sure that they were involved in the 5G era. They obviously have the Bluefield cards and they have the GeForce gaming, which we know mobile gaming will continue to increase. But with the programmatic semiconductors that Xilinx creates, I think it'll be interesting to see where they go with that technology and if that also goes into the data center and just, does AMD lead in 5G and NVIDIA, focuses on their niches and continue to expand out? Or do we see more of a direct competition with those Xilinx chips? So I think it'll be interesting to see what Lisa Su does with that. But I will say, if I had to bet on anyone, I'm betting on Jensen because the AI lead that they have, and they have 2.5 million software developers developing on the CUDA software platform for chips, for programmatic semiconductors for them. I mean, they really have their foothold in a lot of different industries, and AI powering that. I would definitely say they're a compute slash software as a service or software company more than they are a hardware company now. But I don't think the market's recognizing that just yet.
Yeah, this all good points, man. I really appreciate you sharing with us. How did you guys take? I wonder that 4-1 split that was released, I think, last week or this week. I remember. What do you guys think about this? Are you a fan of this or not a fan of this? I think a lot of people think it's a good thing just from a mental part. So now you can buy 4 more shares as you used to. So what do you think? But in reality, you still own the same share of the company as well. But what are your thoughts on this?
So for me, normally stock splits don't really affect me one way or another. Especially luckily here being in the United States, we have the no fees on trading. We also have the ability, depending on the broker, to have fractional shares. So for me here in the United States, things like this don't affect me, but I can see like I do have like a lot of followers overseas that don't have the ability to do fractional shares. So it opens up the ability for other investors to come in. So it definitely, I'm happy that other investors who might not have the full cash or want to open up such a big position on NVIDIA now will be able to do that. But overall, for obviously fundamentals, no real changes for me.
Yeah, I would say that, there is no fundamental change on the business when we have stock split shares happen, but the psychology around owning a share of a company versus fractional shares, I think, is real. We've seen that happen with Apple and Tesla several times over. And so even though nothing really changes as that piece of pizza is just cut up into more slices, it's still the same one pizza. It does create excitement and buzz being a lower cost, being able to have say, hey, I own 5 shares of NVIDIA instead of owning 0.65. I do think that will drive some price volume or price change for them in the short term. But fundamentally, like Jose said, there's not really any change.
Yeah, I like what Anthony said on the Pounding Table podcast. I think he touched on this as well, and he was saying like, I have one Twinkie and I just cut it in 4 different pieces, so I still have one Twinkie, but 4 different pieces of it. So this is pretty much what it all boils down. But I like what Jose mentioned, that it's a lot of people outside of the United States don't have the ability to buy slices of shares, and it's making it more appealing to them as well. So I haven't really thought from this perspective. So this is a good point. We're already 35 minutes in, so if any of the listeners have any questions to our speakers, just request to speak, or just DM me if you want me to. I'll be more than happy to ask any of the questions. Yes, so far just wanted to say thank you for all the listeners, for all the speakers, for sharing their perspective. Great earnings call. Wolf, would you like to add anything?
I'm just listening and enjoying.
Yeah, you're probably getting ready for the next earnings call
Yeah,
we have in 25
I am
minutes.
looking at snow earnings right now.
So in the meantime, a few things I felt were kind of thrown in during the Q&A portion of the call is I don't think I saw it in the press release. Maybe I missed it, but in the Q&A, even though I'm still not sure where I'm leaning to this ARM acquisitions, if I believe it's going to happen, if it's not going to happen. But NVIDIA did mention that they're still making progress. They mentioned it in the Q&A, and they're still on track for early 2022 to complete this. So at least they did announce some form of information about that. And the second thing that I felt wasn't hit too much, it just kind of showed up in the Q&A section, was for the upcoming quarter. They did give us that $6.3 billion revenue guidance, which is about 11% quarter to quarter and about 62% year over year. And they mentioned this growth is they're expecting to see growth in all markets sequentially. So that was another impressive thing. They said mainly driven by data center and gaming. So I think those were two things that they really kind of talked about in the Q&A section and not really throughout the main portion of the earnings.
Yeah, man, I agreed. I think Luke just requested to speak, so I made him a speaker. Luke, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. I wasn't able to get on the earnings call today, but unless you guys heard, did they say anything about estimates as far as Grace and what that kind of looks like moving forward? I'm just interested to see how they tie that all in.
Hey, I don't think they gave any like sales estimates for Grace. I mean, it's a product that still isn't going to be out for a while. It does, seem like they're not like targeting all server CPU workloads in general. They're really going to focus on AI and HPC workloads for Grace. And it's an innovative architecture. The way they use NVLink to connect the CPUs with GPUs and CPUs with each other. And so it's really I think their focus with Grace isn't necessarily like try and dominate the server CPU market. They'll like completely eat Intel and AMD's lunch. It's more to address these sort of very performance intensive workloads that they feel aren't being properly addressed today, and being able to address some of these like interconnect bottlenecks that exist right now in terms of connecting CPUs with GPUs and connecting CPUs with each other, and having this sort of cache coherent interconnect and NVLink they can allow this to happen and can also make things easier for developers is I think the priority. So they want to just address these challenges that they see like their data center customers reporting, rather than completely try and like dominate the server CPU market. But it is an interesting product, and it should be. I do feel like it will gain traction. Just based on what they've said about the technicals and what the value proposition is. I do feel like some of their AI and HPC customers will adopt it and take a liking to it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Thanks a lot, Eric. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, look, thank you so much for the question. I just got a DM, and one of the guys on Twitter asked, "What do you guys think the biggest potential risks and maybe a few bear cases for NVIDIA, in your opinion?"
In the short term, it's going to be, how long this chip shortage happens, right? Like, I couldn't tell you what the stock price is going to be, a month from now, because we don't know exactly when the shortage is going to end and the full impact. But at the same time, from the long term, you look at how they're financially managing themselves and doing it, quite frankly, very conservatively and fiscally responsible. I mean, they even pay a dividend just to show that. They've grown their cash flow from operating activities 37% CAGR since FY 2017. So from a long-term perspective, I'm very bullish about this company because of their management, their execution, and their ability to keep top talent. If you look at this place, it's been named top place to work or top 10 several times, as well as Jensen being a top CEO. But for the short term, until people start really looking at this company for what it is, and it's a software company, I still think there's a lot of room to go here, but in the short term, it may not move as fast as you want because it is a big company with a big market cap.
What about you, Jose? What are the biggest risks in your opinion?
I mean, this is difficult, right? I mean, to me, pretty much what Dominic said. I think right now, how happy the engineers are working there. I've worked for a few companies, and you can tell like how the overall production or the overall product is when you have an engineering team that's not happy compared to an engineering team that is happy. So, I mean, in the long term, I'm just unless all these engineers start hating working for NVIDIA, and that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, sometimes hopefully my boss isn't on here. Sometimes I don't mind looking around to seeing how the job market is to go and work at. We have a facility here of NVIDIA in New Jersey, so sometimes I'm just looking at the overall engineering positions there, just because I just hear how happy engineers or how excited engineers are working with the platform. So I guess the moment I start hearing otherwise about working for NVIDIA, that's when maybe I might have some bearish thoughts.
Yeah,
well
that's a good
said.
point.
Well said.
I just wonder, like, what do you guys think if, for some reason, the ARM acquisition is not going to go through? Do you see it as a bear case for NVIDIA as well?
I don't think it's necessarily a massive issue. To be honest, I think there is a chance that the deal won't be approved just because has sparked a backlash from some major chip developers, such as Qualcomm, and some antitrust regulators are closely scrutinizing it. I mean, NVIDIA has promised, keep supporting ARM's current licensing model, keep supporting the broader ecosystem, and I think they're trying hard to address regulatory concerns. But just given the backlash there has been so far to the deal, and how many other chip developers want to see ARM stay independent, there is a chance that a deal does get approved. But in the event that it doesn't, it's not at the end of the world by any means. NVIDIA will still continue actively supporting ARM. They'll still launch Grace whether or not the ARM deal goes through. They'll still work with ARM server CPU developers like Marvell and Ampere. So I mean, certainly, there are some interesting things they could do if the deal goes through, both in terms of their server CPU development work and, potentially cross-selling their GPU IP to ARM's various clients like smartphones or in the VR, AR headset space and various other areas. So it would be another, catalyst for them. But given all the other growth drivers they have in gaming, in servers, and in automotive and elsewhere, it's certainly not the end of the world if the deal gets rejected.
Yeah, I think I heard multiple times Jim Cramer was talking to Jensen, and Jensen said that with or without ARM acquisition, the company will be totally fine. We will still we'll keep making acquisitions, we'll keep innovating, and so he was so chill about this, even if it's not going to be approved by a regulator. So I have total faith in his leadership, so I'm not worried for a second. But on the other hand, if it will go through, what are you guys the most excited about?
I think the optionality it gives them to expand further into IoT and their automotive autonomous driving, right? With ARM and all the different mobile devices that use ARM processors, as well as, having that as another wedge or foot in the door with new customers who maybe only deal with ARM but don't have a lot of NVIDIA products. It definitely allows for more cross-sell, upsell to their customer base. But from a technology standpoint, I really think it'd be interesting to see what they could do from a gaming and IoT perspective.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that mostly. The fact that in smartphones and various IoT devices and tablets, VR and AR headsets, you have SoCs rather than discrete GPUs. The fact that those SoCs typically have ARM GPU cores inside them means that NVIDIA's current approach really it's difficult for them to sell discrete GPUs into those products. And with ARM, they have a major opportunity to start cross-selling their GPU IP, to create GPU IP that can be sold in tandem with ARM's CPU IP and various other IP to these SoC developers, whether it's a Qualcomm or whether it's, looking at an Apple or whoever else. So perhaps not Apple just because, they're doing their own GPU work, but there are various other chip developers, who could be interested in using NVIDIA's IP for these smartphone SoCs, for these AR, VR headset SoCs, and so on. So that really would be an interesting opportunity long term if the deal was approved.
What about you, Jose? What do you think about? Are you excited about this potential acquisition? What do you think? Is it a game over for the competitors if it will go through? What are your thoughts about this?
So for me, overall, I know a previous question was what's short-term risk. I think short-term risk is if the acquisition doesn't get approved. Short-term risk, I would say maybe psychological, might drive the stock price down. But as long-term investors, that short-term risk is pretty much just noise. I think we've all agreed in the long term of things. If this acquisition happens, great, amazing for NVIDIA. If it doesn't happen, not a game over, not something that would even make me flinch as an investor, if I may be honest. In form of products, I just really want to see the innovative moves that NVIDIA would move from there. I feel like the technology that they can go from here is. I feel I don't even know how they can go from there.
Yeah, man, that's a good point. Thanks, Jose. I got a question also in my DMs. What kind of advice would you give for a person who currently does not have a position in NVIDIA? Should they wait for a pullback, or should they just go ahead and get in right now and start adding on pullbacks? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think the first thing is you got to know yourself, right? You got to know what you're investing for and what your time horizon is and what your goals are with your investments. People always like to ask, is now a good time to buy a stock? And is it, am I getting in at a good value? Which it's always nice to get in a good value, right? But if you have a long time horizon and you're looking to invest long term, winners keep on winning. And if we've looked at what NVIDIA has done over its history, there's been some volatile spikes that you got some extra discounts on, but overall, it's been a winning, evolving company. So getting in now, even if it is close to all-time highs, 10 years from now, you're not going to care. You're going to be glad you got in, right? But if you're looking to trade or do short-term movements, I'm not the person to ask about that. I'm sure a lot of other people are a lot smarter on the phone here with that. But if you're looking for a long term, just dollar cost average, make it disciplined because some days may be lower than others. But overall, what this company has shown from its gross margins and operating margins and future revenue streams that aren't even on the books yet. I put it on a tweet and people may have laughed or threw some hate back, but I believe this will be in 10 years at least $1 trillion company, if not more, from a market cap perspective. So it's my favorite company.
If I can piggyback off that, I do agree. I mean, I think every investor should first it's weird, right? This is a financial game, but I do think even for long-term investors, emotions play such a huge impact. So first, I feel before even entering a position, understand what you're investing, like Dominic said, but also understand your risk and emotion levels. Imagine a possibility if the stock price does have a pullback, right? We can't, in the short term, we don't know if there could be a 10x amount position pullback. And you have to think, hey, if there is this type of pullback, am I going to regret buying a position right now? Or am I going to regret the other? So for me, it's usually if I see a 10% drop, I'll buy. Even if the stock continues to go up, I buy. But that's just because I understand my emotional side in this investing world, where even if a dip, I'm not gonna flinch because I know my long-term thesis. So I think that really helps out in that one question, and I feel like we all get it a lot. Is right now the best time to buy? Most of my companies, if I'm holding, is because I still believe in the potential future of them. So for me, obviously, right now, I think it's a great time to buy. But that's just because I'm emotionally prepared for either a really bad day or a really good day.
No, that is so spot on. And I just want to piggyback off something you said I should have said earlier is you can't have your conviction from someone else. Like even if Eric, myself, and Jose love this company or have a position, you're only going to get your conviction through the research you do, the homework you do, the CEO videos you watch, the interviews. Once you do all the homework, then you'll know what your comfort level is and your emotions and what you can handle and getting in on that. So great point, Jose.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think that NVIDIA probably not the best stock when it comes to if you're like a trader, but as a long-term investment, it's probably one of the best. And I definitely agree with everything that you guys just said. We're actually 10 minutes away from our next event related to Snowflake earnings call. So once you guys done with these spaces, if you want to jump in on the event that will be hosted by Wolf, you're more than welcome, of course. And I think Luke had one more question. I approved him as a speaker as well. Luke, it doesn't show on my screen for some reason. Do you guys see Luke as a speaker or no? Here you go. He just requested. Maybe he has a question as well. Luke, can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Dom, just kind of going off of your what you said in the beginning. Whenever you get the YouTube channel, let me know because I think you have a natural talent for it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, no problems. I listen to you on the podcast and these spaces. I think you got something going, so I think you should go for it.
I appreciate that, man. I'm super passionate about it. I just a quick story is I didn't know you could beat the market 2 years ago, and I got some crazy Motley Fool ads, and saw that people were beating the market. And after doing the homework and just learning, if you do your due diligence and you find what you're passionate about and comfortable in investing, and you can beat the market long term and really change your family dynamics long term as well financially. So thanks for the kind words. Eric,
Yeah,
I think you were gonna say something too. I saw you unmute and I think I cut you off.
No, yeah, that's all right. Yeah, what I was just going to say, was about NVIDIA stock is, I'd say like one thing to keep in mind right now, if you're like thinking about investing in NVIDIA is, while this is a great company, valuations in general for growth stocks are at historically high levels, and you've already like started to see them, often pull back a little bit. Not so much NVIDIA, but various others. There is markets seem to be getting a little more valuation sensitive, and it's just important to keep like historical valuations in mind. Like right now, NVIDIA is trading at 41 times its fiscal 2023 EPS consensus. That's its January 2023 fiscal year. I mean, that forward PE will drop post earnings as analysts raise their estimates following the latest report. But it is a steep multiple, and just be mindful of the fact that we are looking at historically high valuations, not just for NVIDIA but for many other growth stocks. And if there is some pullback, if markets do become more valuation sensitive, that could affect NVIDIA just as it affects many other high growth like marquee tech names. So I think that's certainly worth keeping in mind. And also, when the multiples are higher, it's the margin of error becomes lower. So if there is, some minor issue that, markets don't like, whether it's the ARM deal not being approved or, tougher gaming GPU competition from AMD or, major drop in crypto mining demand affecting gaming GPU demand, even if it doesn't significantly affect NVIDIA's like top and bottom lines, if it just disappoints markets a little bit relative to their expectations, when you have high multiples, they're more sensitive, markets become more sensitive to that stuff. So all of that's worth keeping in mind. I do think this is a great company with a lot of long-term like secular growth drivers, across various end markets. But that's certainly worth considering, when you think about whether or not to buy NVIDIA stock at current levels.
Agree, Eric. Perfect example would be this earnings, right? Many of us here would say it had amazing earnings, but after hours, the stock is actually down about 0.8%. And like you mentioned, the market has already given this pretty much a price to perfection. So if any small mistake happens in the short term, that can definitely be a major risk.
Yeah, agree with you.
Yeah, and I would say too with that, this is something I struggle with and I'm learning to deal with is dollar cost average, right? Like when I hear good news on a company that I love, I want to put more money to work. But to Eric and Jose's point, like be aware of what we're dealing with in the overall macro environment and how little room for error there is and how valuations are extremely high. And overall with how housing is, how we're dealing with tax bills and all these different factors that we could see another big dip, maybe 5, 10, 15% of the market. So if you have some dry powder on the side, boy is it fun when your companies that you're very highly convicted of goes red and that they're going to bounce back or feel confident that they will, getting them on sale. It feels a lot better than paying at top dollar, but at the end of the day, if you're going to hold them long term, winners will keep winning. So
yeah, 100%, man. And look, while you're waiting on Dominic to create his YouTube channel, I would highly suggest you check Jose's YouTube channel, Stock Market Investing. A lot of great videos and great insight.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. And Dominic, if you ever need some help, feel free to just message me. I can share what I've learned.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I already messaged you and Eric, so you'll be hearing from me.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think we have time for one more question before we'll jump on Wolf's Spaces for Snowflake event. I just approved, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, honestly, Rice Fizz. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Riz Fizz, thanks. Sorry, I'm on like a bad connection. Hopefully you can hear me. But yeah, thanks for organizing the talk and really enjoyed listening. I just kind of have one quick question that kind of regards to the valuations this year and they're, them kind of being higher than historic levels. 2020 was kind of like a year with a lot of speculation for a lot of pre-revenue companies and sectors that are kind of not in their prime time, but are very early days. Some of them include stuff like crypto, cloud gaming, the metaverse, like big data analytics, and esports and streaming. I feel like NVIDIA is hitting on pretty much all of these sectors. And can you think of any other companies that would be like a better bet on some of these future technologies? Or is NVIDIA kind of one of the best ones in your opinion?
I've been the first to speak every time, so I'm going to let Eric and Jose first jump at this one.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, there are a lot of great companies out there. I don't, it's not like you can just like, cherry pick. There's one, that's just going to be like, that's just the only way to play a lot of these trends. I mean, obviously, like with gaming, for example, you have game developers like Activision, Take-Two are very well positioned in some ways. I mean, with data center, with cloud capex and cloud data center chip demand, you have companies like Marvell and AMD and II-VI that are well exposed to that area as well. So it's kind of like an open-ended question, but there are a lot of different ways to play things. It's just regardless of what company you choose, just make sure you do your own research, make sure you see like the potential risks, and but there are always opportunities that are going to present themselves over time. Particularly like as markets pull back and as emotions swing towards right now there's a very risk on mindset towards these sort of secular growth drivers. Whether it's cloud software companies, whether it's companies exposed to gaming or cloud capex or whatever. But, there are times when markets will become more pessimistic or where they'll, fail to see the forest for the trees because they're looking at short-term problems these companies have. And that will create buying opportunities, for NVIDIA and for various other companies that are exposed to these long-term trends.
Yeah, and
yeah, man, great reply.
I was just going to echo that on what Eric said there. Now, what I would say is I've never seen a company so involved in so many different secular and mega trends. I think after watching their full GTC conference this year, I started investing in NVIDIA like two and a half years ago, and I had the notion that they were, they were a good AI company. They did starting to get in the data center and great at graphics, right? And I knew that they had good leadership. But I didn't do enough to do my own diligence. I didn't do my own homework like now that I do and watch the CEO interviews and watch these presentations and investor days. And their investor conference, GTC, this year has announced more net new technologies than ever. And I think what's so encouraging to your point, what you were asking there, Rizviz, was talks at the GTC. They're focused on AI, 5G, IoT and edge, quantum compute, speech and natural language learning, self-driving cars, robotics, digital twins, omniverse, metaverse, cybersecurity. Like these are all the things that you hear about all over the investing platform and on the on the investing shows and CNBC about what these trends are. But they understand them and they're keeping top talent to work on them and building out divisions. Like if you look at their employee count versus Intel, they're like 1/6 of the size of Intel, but yet they're a bigger market cap. They're pushing a profit and they are thinking long term in the future opposed to just what this earnings report was going to be. And that's what I look for when I look at CEOs or someone who's looking to build a long-term vision.
Yeah, man, that was a perfect way to wrap it up our call tonight. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jose, Dominic, Eric, for joining us and sharing your views and your take on the earnings call. Such an amazing, strong company, which is led by such an amazing CEO, I think referred as Da Vinci of our time by Jim Cramer. I heard him saying this multiple times. Thank you for all the listeners. And if you enjoy this type of events, Wolf is about to host Earnings Digest for Snowflake. So if you want to go ahead and jump on his spaces right now and listen to all the highlights of the earnings call and earnings report for Snowflake, let's go ahead and do this. And I think for everyone who just joined us, Josh Meltzer here with us right now, and he has been recording a lot of our spaces. And once it's available, everything will be uploaded on Wolf Financial YouTube channel, so you guys can go back and listen to this again if you missed the portion of it. But anyway, thank you so much for all my speakers. Thank you for all the listeners. Look forward to participating with all the events with you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.